Super excited to have Steve Kinder here with Good Coworking, and we've got a guest host, John Herring with Fuse. But we had a chance to go through Good Coworking during the immersive conference here a few weeks ago, and started talking to Steve, and I knew some of the backstory of the furniture and all kinds of stuff. So I thought it'd be fun to jump on, and especially him being a Dallas native like myself, or at least the brand being. So Steve, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Gio. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the beauty of your business is you actually own the real estate too. So I'd love to get back to, okay, how did you even get to what you're doing, and then how does it pivot off some of your other business that you've done?
Oh gosh. I first got introduced to co-working through a marketing associate, Amy King, who was my co-founder at the time of Good Coworking back when we first started it. But it really came to fruition, probably starting in 2010. I went to the first Juicy conference that I went to down in Austin. Had been working with Amy on some marketing stuff, and she really introduced me to the co-working industry at that Juicy conference. And then after that had spent some time, I have another company that makes wall systems and acoustical systems called Loft. And I went out to Chicago and New York to meet with designers and firms, and would always check out co-working spaces, and ultimately did some projects with some other co-working spaces, started to understand the co-working scene. And I was coming at it uniquely from kind of like an office furniture manufacturer. So to my mind, I was like, oh wow, this is a great little synergy. I have this insight around the industry of contracting commercial furnishings for offices and this co-working space. So, after going through a couple spaces over a couple of years and visiting, I had gone to some spaces in New York City. I'd gone to some really inspiring spaces in Chicago. And in my mind, there was really nothing in Dallas quite like that. This was probably 2013, 2014. And I had owned some smaller commercial real estate buildings, and I had just been kind of browsing the local ads, commercial real estate ads, and came across the property that is now Good Coworking. And it was basically a 60,000 square foot building for sale for roughly the value of the dirt. And I was really surprised, and I called on it, and the broker said, well, come take a look at it. And I looked at it, and it was just a total shit show of a mess. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on your podcast, but
It was
it was a
uncensored.
dilapidated building. It
Yeah.
was just a dilapidated building. It had great bones, though. It was built of concrete and steel, and it was big, and it was built in the 50s, and it had this beautiful monumental stair in the middle of the space, and it was tilt wall construction. It had no windows, but as someone who was kind of a visionary and a creative, my background was in product design, furniture design, interior design. I could just feel that it just had my gut just said, oh, this could be a really great space. And so that's what happened. And then so I threw together a deck of like 10 slides to just show the owner. I went to the broker and I said, hey, what's the owner trying to do with this? They're trying to sell it. Would they partner? Would they do something? He said, I don't know. What are you thinking? And I put together like 10 slides of these really cool co-working spaces from San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and sent it over and said, hey, what if your building was this? Would this be a cool way to bring? And it was in kind of a weird neighborhood or outside of Dallas called the Cedars. There wasn't a lot of really cool spaces. There was a lot of kind of a light industrial, bunch of grocery warehouses nearby. And they loved it. They loved the deck, and they said, hey, we think this is a great idea. We would love to back your vision to develop this. And I said, all right, well, I can't afford this. And they said, oh, don't worry. We have banking relationships. We'll help. We'll go in as partners, and we'll leverage our ability to finance the development and the construction of the project. And that's really how it came to fruition. So, yeah. And then about 3 years of development, design, and construction, and we opened in 2018. Yeah.
And I think that there's such uniqueness to the space because you have, and we'll talk through this, it's just my experience, right? You have a floor at co-working, then you have a floor of some more traditional type tenants. You have a really cool like arts maker space, a gym, and then you
Mhm.
have some Airbnbs even. So let's talk about kind of have all that's kind of played out. How did that come to fruition?
Yeah. Well, I think, the building itself was kind of two separate buildings built at different times that were joined by just their proximity. One of them had they're both two-stories, but one is like a smaller building with smaller spaces. And the floor plan, initially when we looked at the zoning allowed for short, what they called hotel motel uses as a commercial property, but it wouldn't allow for residential. And it dawned on me, okay, well, maybe we can take one floor of this building and turn it into smaller live work lofts. I wasn't really an I wasn't really thinking to turn it into. I was just thinking, oh, maybe these could be like hybrid, small lofts with kitchens and bathrooms, and we could rent them out as commercial spaces. And then, so that was one element. But part of it was I was also just trying to think about what are the this idea of a multi-use property that could have value to the community beyond just being an office building. What else could be there? And I thought co-working would be a great hub base for the building. And then on top of that, we would have some larger tenant spaces for people who wanted to be who just had larger needs for space than maybe a traditional co-working space would have. And then also there just wasn't any other residential around that area. So the live work lofts, building out some of those as was kind of like the third leg of the stool. So I thought about the building as a stool, and one leg was a co-working leg, the other leg was like dedicated longer term office lease spaces, and the third leg was like these smaller live work potentially residential spaces. And those became kind of like the three legs of the stool for the building. Yeah.
Yeah. And then how'd the makerspace come about for the
Oh,
artists?
so the artist space. So yeah, that was kind of in the next evolution after we got the building open. There was another building in Deep Ellum that had been acquired that had long time been. It was called the Continental Gin Building. And as developers were coming through Dallas in the late 2017, 2018s, this building got acquired. And there were artist lofts. There were artists that had been in that building since the late 70s,
Hmm.
and they had basically gotten evicted, and they were looking for a new home. And a friend of a friend said, "Hey, you should talk to these guys. They're looking for some place to move to." And we had just opened the building, but we had the whole second floor area open, and we were starting to carve up spaces. And my background, I went to Rhode Island School of Design. I actually did painting. I'm very interested in the fine arts, and so I really felt like I would love to bring that lens and that kind of perspective to the building of actually having an art studio in the building as well is just another kind of leg of the uniqueness of our building since we're adjacent to Deep Ellum and there's a history of creative arts and music there. How could we bring that? So we were able to kind of find a common ground with the artists and get them moved over and organized, and they've been there since. Yeah. So
And how many bays do you have for artists?
I think there's 12 bays. Yeah. So each bay is roughly 12 feet wide by 18 feet long, I believe. Yeah. And some artists share those bays, and other artists have one bay or two. Some of them have larger than that.
And as far as the gym goes, I'll tell you, John is a gym connoisseur. So, I mean, talk about kind of the gym, and I mean,
Mhm.
do some programming there.
Sure. Sure. Well, when we developed the building, there was a really focus on health and wellness. We're a LEED certified building, we're a LEED gold building. And so there was always a real ethos around health and wellness. And so having a space that could be used for fitness or wellness is what we wanted to have. And so that space has a lot of free weights. It has like a rowing machine. It has some lightweight stuff where it's open so someone can go in there and use that. And a few years ago, actually about 4 years ago, we partnered with a local woman who actually kind of curates the space now, and she runs classes in there, but she also offers like boxing. She offers different classes. She's also brought in some other folks who do classes as well, like yoga. And so she's really taken on that space and brought it as an amenity and manages it and takes care of it for us. So yeah, so it's been a nice partnership to have someone who oversees the kind of curation of the space and the programming of that space as well for the community.
Yeah, Steve, Fuse Workspace, there's a small group of people that are developers. We buy buildings and we put co-working spaces in them. So we're one of them. So
Mhm.
my interest is real high based on your financial model. Can you walk us through how you put together the financing for this building? You said you got it dirt cheap, literally, right? It's dirt cheap. It was the price of the dirt. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. We had to certainly we got it for around, yeah, I think it was like $12. I bought a majority ownership in the building, and it was basically roughly $12 or $13 a square foot, but it needed, it took about a year to do all the prep and cleanup and structural evaluation, the to go in, I can't recall what the amount was, but we certainly put, again, this is back in 2015, $2016.
Yeah.
So I think, we were definitely we got a lot of good value built into that because of our timing with that. But I think, I we had a banking relationship. My partner had a
Mhm.
banking relationship because their main business is parking lots. And they, at the time, they had about 70 parking lots across Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and they had banking relationships that would finance these parking lots for them. And so they had a really good history with the bank that they brought in and said, "Hey, we're going to do this building development in our backyard. Steve's going to be our partner." And I since I had some business assets already and some commercial stuff through my businesses, I had I had a decent balance sheet that a bank would look at and be like, "Okay, for this, we you can kind of make it work." So but ultimately, like any real estate transaction, you had to come up with 20%, 25% of the value of the property. So, between the asset and the money we put into that and the development costs, the architectural fees, we were pretty close to getting that covered for what roughly became about at the time it was probably around a $5 million budget to do
Hmm.
all the renovation and stuff. So it was a lot of money at the time, but looking back, it actually feels like we did okay. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The concept of taking over an old building, boy, I'll tell you, I get real sentimental about older buildings. This wasn't historical. This was more in a industrial zone. But did you have to encounter any of those? This building is 50 years old. I can't remember exactly when you said it was built, but it's older, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the first building was a brick building with steel and concrete construction. It was built in the early 50s. And then the
Mm,
family that originally started that, they were a jewelry. So the original building, the smaller building, was a jewelry store, like a two-story jewelry store. They had a vault, which was really
that's
cool.
cool.
And then about 5 years later, on the edge of downtown, they decided to become a department store. And so the next building they built was like a 45,000 square foot two-story building that was like a department store almost. So they
Mm,
became like a department store with furniture and appliances and home goods. And this was back in the late 1950s, I guess. So
wow.
pretty interesting. And so, it just and it's built really, really, really well.
Hmm.
And so when we went in there, there were all kinds of other issues, but the structure was really solid. I think that's the thing. You never know when you're dealing with an old building what you're going to stumble upon, like bad electrical systems, bad plumbing systems, everything has to be replaced. And, there's always a case that you can demo everything and build from the ground up again and make it what you need it to be for about the same price. But at the end of the day, our architect, we had a lead certified architect, GGO, Gary Ulp, and he did an amazing job. He had a lot of experience working with old buildings, and he was able to come through, and we went through a really meticulous process of just really, hey, here's what we can use, here's what we can
Hmm.
save, here's what we can reuse, here's what we're going to do with the lead process to look at air circulation or look at materials or look at finishes. And so a lot of that just was really a lot of his work, the architect's work. Yeah.
So let's talk about your furniture line and kind of how that came. How'd you get into the furniture business with Loft Wall, and kind of what kind of work have you done, and how have you used it within the space? I think that's been so unique for me over the time that I've seen the space evolved, it was like, well, where's that? That's really cool. And how did you do that? And then it's like, oh, this is part of Loftwall, or it was kind of a testing ground in ways to a certain extent, but I'd love to hear more about Loftwall.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the space, I've been able to like build these synergies off of each thing as I see these opportunities and things grow. And so the first business I had was an event marketing and trade show business where I'd basically help companies promote their products and services at trade shows and conventions like CES or auto shows or other industry specific trade shows and conferences. And around 2009, the Great Recession happened, and that business took a bit of a hit from marketing expenditures and stuff. People weren't going to shows and conferences that much, and it had been in the back of my mind to kind of start a new kind of furniture business. And I had been working with some of our commercial some of our clients who had offices. And they had said, hey, can you come in and help us build some temporary walls around these work areas? We loved what you did with our trade show booth. Can you help us just maybe make some walls, some cool walls for offices? And I said, sure. And I did that a couple times. And the guy was like, he's like, hey man, this is a really cool product. This isn't something that one of those other big contract furniture manufacturers, the Herman Millers, the Knowles, the Steel Cases offer. He's like, you should go do a business. You should start a business doing this, because the open office concept was becoming bigger and bigger around 2010. And so I think, that kind of insight, just listening what my customer told me, really helped me go to market with this product. And watching basically a lightweight room divider company called Loftwall, where we made these modular aluminum frame dividers that you could put different materials in, woods, fabrics, translucent acrylic materials. They could link together. You could change the panels, you could customize them. And that was really kind of the birth of that company through working in office spaces and being around that. And then just over the years, when I acquired this building, it became a living lab for a lot of our products and stuff. And so, the company Lawful has done pretty well over, it's 15 years old, and we've got about 35 employees, and we sell through office furniture dealers and independent reps across the US, Canada, and parts of Mexico. And, we're really focused on bringing flexible, agile, acoustical solutions and wall solutions to spaces that change to workspaces. And so, we just launched a new product called Snapwall, which is a modular office wall system that I think actually is really attractive to a lot of co-working owners and operators, because from my own experience being in the co-working space and being a building operator, I kind of designed the product that I couldn't find out in the world that I thought would be perfect for flexible offices and workspaces. And that's the product that I think has a lot of potential in a flexible workspace industry, or a business that wants flexible workspaces. So, yeah. So that's a little bit of the history and background on Loftwall. But, it was great because we used the co-working space as a living lab for a lot of the products that we would develop and launch, whether it was acoustical product or whether it was a modular enclosure product or a room product or a divider product. Yeah.
And where do you manufacture?
So we manufacture everything just outside of Dallas in Grand Prairie, Texas, just south of the airport. Yep.
I think your Snapwall thing is super cool, and it does solve problems that co-working operators have, like the flexibility question. Like, I've got a big open space and I don't want to spend the money to build out a conference room that gets used 90% or doesn't get used 90% of the time or whatever. But this thing's movable. You can shrink it, you can grow it. And most importantly, it has a ceiling option. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah. So that's one of the things, I spent a lot of time researching and talking to building owners and different types of, and co-working space owners and architects. And so we wanted to design a system that, you might be familiar with demountable wall systems. They're these heavy duty architectural systems that were originally designed to be movable and flexible, but the reality is when they get installed in a lot of commercial buildings, they just don't ever move again. And I got a lot of feedback from people who had specified those. They're expensive, they're architectural, and I thought, and really the market, talking to office furniture dealers, talking to building owners, everyone said, hey, your frame wall product's really cool and demountable walls are great, but there's nothing in the middle. Can Lawful develop a product that could really be in the middle, that could be kind of like a standalone, system that could have a ceiling, it could have lighting, it could have some electrical, you could have some air circulation. So it acts and
Yeah.
looks like an office, but it could be set up in a day. And then it can be
Yeah.
moved around, and it's not a complicated system. It snaps together. So really, I spent the last kind of 3 years leading the design team on bringing that product to market that I think has a ton of potential. But yes, it has a ceiling, and we're looking at it has integrated lighting and electrical, and we can do a lot of different things. And the beauty is, like you alluded to, when we experience this all the time. We get someone who walks into Good Coworking and says, "Hey, I just need an office."
Mhm.
And then they come to us and say, "Hey, I'm going to add 2 more people to my team, but now I don't have another space. I like
Mhm.
all my other offices. And so wouldn't it be great if I could just build an office in my open area now, or take their one space, divide it up and make 2 spaces, or kind of easily add on and bring in a product that could do that very easily?" And that's what I envision what this
Mm.
Snap product has the potential to do, is to be flexible enough to change. If you have a big conference room and it's not getting used, okay, we'll divide it into 3 offices now and make it become offices. I think that was the idea, is that there's a lot of these traditional build out approaches for commercial offices that just aren't flexible enough or dynamic enough for like co-working space owners and operators who just need a little bit more options and agile solutions. So
And as far as, I love, let's go back to the area of the building, right? It's a gentrifying
Mhm.
area. It's industrial for the most part. You had, was it a Tyson's chicken plant across the street? Was that right?
it was Pilgrim. It was
Oh, it's
Pilgrims. It was
Pilgrim's
called Pilgrim's
Pride.
Pride.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. They were a chicken processor. They were a very large chicken processor. Yeah, and
And the
they
plan is
originally had the property. Yeah.
to do a really cool mixed development over there with a bunch of apartments and retail and all kinds of fun stuff. I know obviously COVID and construction prices have kind of slowed that down, but you're kind of in the way of that whole development and growth around the Cedars area down there.
Yeah, well, as you know, the Cedars areas, been a ton of new residential just a few blocks over that's going gangbusters. And so we are kind of at the end of that, where I think that's going to start coming over. In fact, I noticed there's a building 2 streets over. It's like a 40,000 square foot building that they could not sell or lease because it had no parking, but it was like a warehouse building. And I just noticed they're demoing that, which means I think they're going to start doing some other residential development or more over there. So yeah, it's there's a lot coming that way, it seems like.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, and so it's a cool kind of urban revitalization. So it'll be fun to watch everything continue to grow and evolve around you.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit, Gio, not quite, but we have a similar situation in Austin where we're right across we're 1 mile from downtown, but it could be light years because it's a different neighborhood. There's that interstate highway that cuts it in between and just makes it 2 different, very, very distinct areas. And no doubt I-35 or I-30 is broad, and so is 45. But how have you been able to attract members to this area? It's an up and coming area, no doubt. What's your pitch?
Yeah. So great question. And I'd say I'm glad you brought this up, because really, when Amy launched the co-working space in 2018, she spent a lot of time in her community and brought a lot of people in the creative community to the building and networking and bringing people. When you launch a co-working space, you want to have like 50 members before you open the door. Like, you really want to hit the ground running with a great network of people who get the building open and spread the word and bring people in. And we had that out the gates. And I think, when COVID came along, it really shifted kind of the mix of people that were coming into our space. And what we learned is, we're in this Cedars area, which is kind of between Fair Park, downtown, and Deep Ellum. And it's kind of in these middle of this crossroads area where there's not a lot of places to co-work, and there's not a lot of stuff nearby. But what's interesting is we started we started we're adjacent to some nonprofits that were doing a lot of services in the communities adjacent to those areas. And so one of them in particular is called Child Poverty Action Lab. And they found our space initially early on. And as they grew, they started attracting other nonprofits who wanted to be around them and also saw the value of being adjacent to the communities you're serving. And so right now, over the last 5 years, we've seen our kind of demographics really shift from being small businesses and entrepreneurs, but we still have some of that small businesses and creative businesses to really being we have about a dozen nonprofits in the space now. And the location has really been beneficial to them because they are minutes away from a lot of the communities and services for the people they're trying to help. And so we found that to be kind of a unique model that I think, was something we didn't expect when we opened the building initially. Yeah, that was going to be our largest tenant base were nonprofits. And a lot of people, I think, get scared when they hear nonprofits. Oh, I've got to give these people a discount, or
Right.
they're not going to be able to pay what a normal office commercial. When the reality is, we haven't had any issues with that. Most of the nonprofits have been very well funded. They value the community, they value the space, and they value being adjacent to the areas they want to serve. And we haven't had a lot of issues with having to compromise on our financial model because it's a nonprofit. Yeah.
Well, Gio knows that I'm tingling right now because I have a nonprofit, and part of our corporate ethos is we want nonprofits in our building. We look at it like you. It's a blessing to have nonprofits. In fact, it's a blessing for them because they get great space, and a lot of nonprofits are in secondhand space or third-hand space, whatever cheap. They're in a professional environment, and they're around not just other profits, but they're also around for-profits and individuals. And so tell us how you've seen those nonprofits mixing in the larger community, and what's the value for the community and what's the value for the nonprofit, do you see?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think, it kind of ebbs and flows. I mean, I think there's always like, we may have a nonprofit that's 2 people, and we have a larger nonprofit that's 30 people. And, they want to help each other. They absolutely want to. Like the team at CPAL, when there's another nonprofit that needs help, they share resources. They guide them where they need to go. They help them make connections in the city, referrals to things. We've got another nonprofit that's called the Human Impact, and they're focused on helping find unhoused people who are on the streets, find the right resources to get them off the streets, not just put them in a shelter, but really find the right resources. If it's a veteran, how do we get this person connected into the VA and their services? How do we hold their hand and walk them down the path to make sure they get the services they need? So, I think when you have a community where we've been able to kind of have these nonprofits really put their best foot forward and help each other, it starts to attract other like-minded people that want to be there. So I think that's been great. And yeah. But for me, it's been good because for me, it's also a passion project. Like I really like knowing that in a weird way, this space we created has become kind of very social impact focused and having impact in the community in a part of town of Dallas that needs it. And knowing that, this building has a very strong purpose and meets the needs of people outside our building and the communities adjacent to it, I think is really powerful. So,
Tell us about you. Kids, no kids, grandkids. You're not old enough to have grandkids, are you?
Not yet. I've got 3 kids, 22, 20, and 18. So, yep.
Okay.
And they're all Texas. We're all my oldest is down at University of Texas. He's a senior. He'll graduate in May. And my daughter is an esthetician and in the process of helping her kind of get her business off the ground. And then my youngest is a senior, and he'll be attending SMU next fall, it sounds like.
Cool. So we won't hold A&M against John Herring. I mean, he can't complete a sentence or really
No,
type of.
I went to the lesser of the two, but I spend a lot of time in Austin now, and I think it's a pretty cool place.
Hey, I know a lot of people have been to A&M. My business partner is an A&M grad. A great institution. Yeah. So hey, man, I think it's healthy competition. Yeah. So we got to have that. So.
Hey, we won't bring up the fact it's a cult, but other than that, it is healthy competition.
No doubt about that.
So if we were to ask your three kids what they loved most about you, what would it be?
Oh man, I that's a great question. I don't know. I think they like that I'm creative. I think they like that I'm not afraid to let them try things or do some new things. I think they also, I enjoy taking them places and experiencing life with them. So yeah.
It seems like this is a path, Steve, that well, it's actually pretty cool. Like you're still in the design, you're still in,
Hmm.
got a business that you're running, but you're also now operating a co-working space. I'm maybe about your same age, kids about the same age. And at this
Oh, really?
stage in my life, yeah, I am. I want to do stuff that is impactful and I want to do stuff that's interesting. And, I want to do things that make the community a better place, make the world a better place. And you've got several things cooking right now, really interesting mix of businesses that intersect, but also are independent of one another. Just from a leadership perspective, Stephen, who do you look to for insight into how to be a leader of a very successful modular wall business and a
Mhm.
very impactful co-working space? Who has influenced you or what influences you? What's helped you along the way to kind of get to where you are now?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I joined an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization EO about 17 years ago. I've always had this kind of personal desire to grow and learning. I don't believe my education ended when I graduated college. I have kind of a learner mindset. And I've just always appreciated hearing the perspectives of other people. My exposure through that organization has led me into other leadership opportunities and other paths to grow my own leadership capability. And I think for me that's been a really I'm really grateful for the journey I've had so far with that. I really try to elevate others. And, my purpose is to create environments that inspire others to pursue their dreams and passions. That's like the purpose that I refined about 10 years ago. And so I think we all have a passion or a purpose that we want to pursue. And if I can find ways to help elevate people to get into that and fulfill their kind of vision of what they want to do, that I think is my ability as a leader to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what people forget. I mean, I still love one of my favorite quotes is essentially that two most important days of our lives: the day we're born and the day we figure out why, right? And what's our
Mhm.
purpose and how are we called to give back? And I think that's when we have purpose behind our lives, it brings so much more value and fulfillment as we interact. And especially with you guys having kids, I mean, teaching that to the next generation is so vital. And so, as while walking through the space, I mean, I think it's always fun to see the diversity in your space, right? I mean, I think
Mhm.
that's a really cool part about it. So, you know, that's something that I know was huge for Amy, was the diversity side of stuff. And so, kind of what is your when you walk through your space, what do you feel just interacting with people there or getting? I mean, you got to tour people through the space when we were there for
Mhm.
the GWA tours. So how does it make you feel when you do that?
Mm.
Well, I mean, I gave a tour last week with somebody who was like, oh, who their comment was like, Steve, this space is kind of like a three-dimensional version of you. Like when you look at kind of the influences of my life
Love
as
it.
a designer, someone who was interested in arts, someone who was interested in diverse perspectives and understanding people, helping others. I mean, really, this has become kind of a dimensional space, and so I just have a huge, immense sense of gratitude for it. I mean,
Mm.
I I can't say I started out knowing this was where it was going to go, but you can always look backwards in life and see where these dots start to connect, and the people who come into your life who bring these insights or unique perspectives that you kind of lean into a little bit, and then things start to flourish and evolve out of those relationships. And I've just been really fortunate and grateful to lean into things sometimes. Sometimes, I guess in different phases of life, you want to say no to certain things, but in other phases of life, things show up and they show up in front of you for a reason. And sometimes you got to
Right.
lean into them and with a learner's mindset and see where it goes. You can always say no in the future, but you just never know how sometimes this stuff unfolds. So
Right. I love that. I was thinking about influence, and great advice for a young person coming out of college. You've got one. You got one going in, you got one coming out. The path that you're taking at age 22, that's kind of what I was getting at earlier in my question. It may look radically different than, what you're prepping for in college, and that's okay. There are opportunities that will come your way. Some you'll take, some you won't, and see where they lead. And the path that's set before you is one that it's hard to map out, and that's fine. I mean, it's in the generation we live in today, Steve. I think you would agree with this, that maybe our parents worked 30 years at the same company and kind of did the same
mhm.
thing. And that's true kind of my dad, at least. He was in education for 30, 40 years. I've been in a variety of things, and you have too. And that's cool. And that's kind of the new world we live in. How would you counsel a young person coming out of college with this frame of mind? What would you say? Maybe to your son.
Oh, we have conversations about this a lot. I just tell them to try stuff. I think go try something for a year or two, learn. I mean, my first job, I worked at a large event company for a few years. I went back to the design field, worked at an industrial design firm for 7 years, learned a lot about different industries and businesses before I had the opportunity to finally break out on my own and start my own business. And so I always, I encourage my kids not to go try stuff, go try something different. The first job I forced my son to get was a fast food job because I thought you learn so much by getting like a fast food job. It sounds
Great.
silly,
Yeah.
but you learn a lot about people, you learn a lot about systems, and you learn a lot about getting in front of people. So I think I just try to encourage my kids to go try new things because nothing, it's not, you don't have to commit forever. You just try some
Right.
stuff, see, learn what you can and move on to the next thing. So yeah.
It's great.
So, if I was to ask you what the next 12 months you think holds for the flexible workspace industry and co-working and just where we're headed, what are the things that you're envisioning?
Well, I think, as someone who spends a lot of time thinking about the workplace and having obviously a manufacturer that supplies products to that into that industry, but also having exposure through co-working space, I think, the last few years there's been a lot of talk from the work from home evolution and the corporate revolution and what does this mean? And I think ultimately people want to be around other people with that are feeling productive and wanting to do things. And there's a social element to the work environment that I think is important in our lives. Any of us who have worked in a company, we built social connections there. They may have not been our lifelong best friends, but they were social connections. And I think that's important to have in life. And I think the workplace is still going to be a place to foster that in new ways. I think the flexible workspace is going to be more important than ever. And I was really, a lot of the data that's coming out, some of the stuff that was at the GWA conference, I really believe there's truth to that, you know, a large amount of office space is going to become shared, flexible, call it co-working space, call it what you want. But I think, that the opportunity to put people in an environment to collaborate around ideas, and especially with this evolving technology of AI, I mean, there's going to be this whole layer of AI where AI is going to take over a certain subset of work responsibilities and administrative responsibilities for businesses, but there's still going to be people.
Mm.
We are humans. We live in a human-centered society. There's a human element to everything we do, and we still are going to have needs to connect with each other on a human level that AI will never be able to replicate, in my opinion. So, and that's what the workplace becomes in my mind. So,
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's so much runway for us, right? When we look at how things are going in London and parts of Europe and certainly Asia, you know, we have a ways to go to basically catch up as far as where work's being done today. So super excited about that and just the opportunity ahead. And so looking forward to having more and more of these conversations. It'll be fun to see. So we're doing the next immersive up in Toronto in
mhm.
June. And
That's all.
so Canada's a totally different world than the US in a lot of ways, because most of the buildings are owned by institutional grade landlords. And so how deals are done, what they're willing to do is completely different. Also, the way they work is different, right? And so I'm really looking forward to hearing some of this stuff that's gone on up there. So we're gonna end with your favorite place you've ever traveled and what you loved most about it.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, I traveled to a lot of places. I like a lot of places. I like Paris. Paris in France is a great place. I love the diversity. I love the architecture. I love the different types of spaces. I love going through museums. I love exploring kind of the outskirts of different districts of the city. The food is great, and I really enjoy that city a lot. So,
Yeah, I'm excited. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because Co-working Europe is in Paris this year. And
oh
so
really?
yeah, and so I have not been, and I promised John Eves that I'd go, and this time it's going to happen for sure. But it's November, so I got to get booking. So I don't know,
Ah,
if you like Paris, you should certainly consider it, because there's some incredible speakers out there, and just good thought leaders, and just and really cool spaces. So
yeah.
I think I'll
I will. I
probably
will. I will.
Nice.
yeah, I'll send you a link to it, and I think I'll do Paris, and then flip back through London, either on my way there, on my way back, depending on how travel
Mm,
falls. But really excited about that.
fabulous.
Well, real Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
I
I
hope to
appreciate it.
see I hope to see more and more of you. I think
Well, you're
even
here in
you
town. Yeah, we need to be.
yeah, no, for sure. But even at the conferences, I mean, you're a
Mhm.
unique model in the loft wall stuff, and just, I mean, back to thought leadership, right? Is
Thank you.
understanding from an operator standpoint, and then also as a furniture provider. I think that'll be awesome. So really look forward to seeing more of you. And John, appreciate you jumping in and trying to fill the big shoes of Jamie.
Impossible. Absolutely impossible. She's my hero in so many ways. Steve, it is good to talk, and loved touring your space. It's so
Absolutely.
unique and so interesting. And I'm sure a lot of people will want to pick your brain, if they haven't already, on how to replicate your model in their city, because it's needed.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John. I look forward to connecting with you too.